Hello, faculty and staff. My name is Elena Kahn. Today, we will be discussing the ethical use of information regarding copyright. We want to ensure that you use instructional materials that you legally have permission to use. Our objectives today are to understand what copyright is, what falls under copyright, and what does not, to understand what the Fair Use Act is and how it applies to you, and to determine which materials are acceptable to use in your classroom and which are not. Here is our agenda for today. We will start with defining and understanding copyright. Next, we will talk about the Fair Use Act, then what falls under the copyright and what doesn't, and finally, we will talk about a checklist for the Fair Use Act. First, you have to understand what copyright is. According to copyright.gov, copyright is defined as the intellectual property that protects the original works of authorship as soon as the author fixes the work in a tangible form of expression. This includes a multitude of works like paintings, recordings, computer programs, books, blog posts, and so much more. Copyright protects individuals, and we want to ensure we follow the law. Just because we are teachers doesn't mean we are free to use whatever we want. Don't worry though, I can help you. The Fair Use Act allows people to use works without permission. The use of the work depends on four factors: the purpose of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount of material used, and the effect on the potential market for the value of work. The first factor, the purpose of use, indicates that educational nonprofit use favors commercial use. As teachers, we use material to educate and not profit from, so we are usually covered. The second factor is the nature of copyright. If the work is published, it usually qualifies for fair use. Factual work also has an advantage as opposed to creative work to qualify for fair use. The third factor, the amount of material used, has two parts. If you use a very small amount as opposed to copying the entire work, fair use applies. However, the exception is if you copy the most substantial part of a work. For example, did you copy the hook of a song? If you did, fair use would not apply. The last factor is more complicated. We have to take into consideration the effect on the market. Could you have reasonably purchased this work? If you are doing a class novel study, the school should purchase the book for each student. However, if you photocopied one purchased book 24 times, you are not covered. If you can say yes to all four factors, then fair use applies to you. Anything created after January 1st, 1978 is covered under copyright. The copyright is in effect for the entire life of the author plus 70 years. Shakespeare and the work of Frederick Douglass qualifies in the public domain. Also, information published as facts like printed maps or government documents are considered public and are not copyrighted. The American Library Association has this checklist on their website. It gives a wonderful overview of each factor. As you can see on this slide, there is a section for the first two factors we discussed. If you can check favoring fair use on each factor, fair use applies. Here are the last two factors we discussed regarding the amount and effect on use. This checklist makes it easier to ensure that you are not breaking any copyright laws. I hope you have a good understanding of copyright and the Fair Use Act. Please let me know if you have any material that you have questions about. Thank you.